So 100 years ago when a guy turned 18, he could do just about anything. He was a man. He could start a family, start a business, go hunting, fix things, build things. Today's 18-year-olds, really, there's very little that they can do that is useful to society. So they can play their little games really well, but they don't have a lot of skill that makes them an asset, especially when things go wrong.
But these teenagers are giving up those things and more for an entire year. And what they're doing instead might just restore your faith in the future of this country. In the hot East Texas summer, the Alert Academy turns boys into men with a unique program that's one part Boy Scouts, one part Bible school, and lots of good manly fun.
For the warrior, self-improvement is life or death. Victory for the warrior is different than victory for the regular man. And so I don't think every man can be a warrior. I don't think every man's called to be a warrior, but I think we can all learn from their lifestyle. We can all learn from their discipline and their self-motivation. The one thing that a warrior has to get very good at is being driven, is motivating himself to do what he needs to do in the moment in order to be the best person he can be.
Japanese culture once heralded the brave samurai warrior, known for intense discipline, courage, and self-sacrifice. My, how times have changed. Increasingly, Japanese men are rejecting those traditional values, instead embracing a concept called herbivore men.
Okay, so there is a specific term in Japanese to express such a man. We say it, 草食系男子. It means grass men. It's like easily fallen down by wind. They don't have any core value. It's like just a grass.
So all the young lions out there, I watch them when I'm at the airport, when I'm at the mall, when I'm out in the street, and I see how lost they are. And I see some of the behaviors that they exhibit, which are obviously them trying to build a facade of a scared little boy that is trying to look like a man. And they're doing that because they don't know what it means to be a man. They don't know what manhood looks like. And there's a lot we can learn from the old lions. There's a lot we can learn from warriors.
We're not savages, we are men.
Prowess is the skillful display of manly power. It's about being the best man that you can possibly be. Not so that you can redeem yourself, but so that you can redeem others, so that you can be more useful to the master. In 2 Timothy, it talks about in a large house there are many vessels, some for honorable use and some for dishonorable use. And then it goes on to talk about how if you want to be that vessel that's set aside for honorable use, then you have to live a more disciplined life. You have to set yourself apart from the worldly, fleshly desires that the rest of the world lives for. And that is the kind of warrior mentality that men can learn from.
ALERT stands for Air-Land Emergency Resource Team, and it's made up of high school graduates from around the country. Sam Kordick signed up when he was 18.
First 3-4 weeks of basic training were murder. It was intense, it was hard, I was dying. I felt like there was no possible way I could make it. At the same time, there was no possible way I could go home and say, I quit.
After completing the course, Sam returned for advanced paramedic training. Now, 2 years later, he directs the Quest program, ALERT's 4-week summer course for boys aged 14 to 16.
We strive to give them basic skills that every man needs, maintenance skills, skills of financial stewardship, time management, stuff like that. We point them towards Scripture heavily, teaching them to use Scripture as the basic rule of life. And above all, we just strive to develop in them disciplines for success, disciplines like prayer, daily devotions, physical training, proper eating, the basic disciplines men need to grow up.
I think one of the problems that young men have today is that they don't have mentors. They spend most of their time with people of their own age. They're sequestered in school with boys their own age. Most of their teachers are women. And so they have very few opportunities to get life lessons given to them by what I would call the old lions.
What we see are young men coming out of high school who lack purpose in life. They don't know what they want to do. They haven't a clue. I believe that we have a great vision for meeting needs of people in crisis throughout our nation, not for our sake, but for God's sake, so that we can declare the gospel of salvation wherever we go.
Military psychologists have found that a man who has a strong faith foundation will consistently perform better in combat than a man who doesn't. So I've had military psychologists tell me, if I get two guys in here that are trying out for an elite special operations unit, and they're exactly the same in every way, tactically, technically, and physically, but one has a strong faith foundation and one does not, we will always take the guy that has the strong faith foundation, because we have found that a guy who doesn't have that tends to need to control his environment. He needs to control what's around him. He needs to always be in control because his worldview tells him that everything is random chance. Well, when you get into combat, it is by definition an uncontrollable environment. And so a guy who needs to control everything is going to get task saturated and not be able to perform as well. Whereas a guy who has a strong faith foundation, who was inculcated with that worldview that says God is in control, he can focus on what he is supposed to be doing at that moment and leave the rest up to God, and he can perform better under stress.
Invasion force set sail. He said to his wife, "We should pray for them. A lot of men are going to die tonight." The lighthouse keeper was right.
They told us that we were going to run into stiff resistance and that it was going to really be bad.
Not only bad, but worse than expected. Invasion planners had failed to detect thousands more German troops in the region, and German shore batteries were firing at full strength. That was not supposed to happen.
The bombers were supposed to take all this stuff out. They didn't do it.
The regiment in front of Anderson's was slaughtered in the water. Most men never made shore. Anderson's unit was next. They were drenched, seasick, terrified. They were ordered to go for the beach.
I don't necessarily believe every man should be a warrior. I've heard that said a lot. I've probably said it myself in men's retreats and stuff. But I think in reality, saying that every man should be a warrior is kind of like saying every man should be a Navy SEAL. The warrior lifestyle is a set-apart lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that is completely devoted to being the best you can be, because for the warrior, it's life or death. So prowess is about learning to, number one, have victory through surrender. It's about learning to allow yourself to do your job, to do what you're supposed to do without worrying about all the other details, getting paralysis of the analysis, as they say. Prowess is about displaying the glory of God to its finest. It's about polishing your own mirror to the point where it will reflect God's glory that much better. It's not about you, it's about God.